Bula Vinaka and welcome to Girmit Talks. The 14th of May, 1879 was Arrival Day or Girmit Day, when the first ship arrived from India to Fiji, the Leonidas, in the port of Levuka, and set in motion a period of Fiji history that has changed the way in which we see the South Pacific, parts of the Caribbean, and parts of the Indian Ocean. We wanted to mark this day with the launch of our graphic novel, which has arrived here, a sample of it. These will be ready as a downloadable PDF and as a real-life graphic novel. This is part one, and we hope to have a series of graphic novels. I'm joined today by the Girmit team, an amazing group of professionals who've been committed to all things Girmit and the Girmit cause over the year. We're joined by educator, educationalist, teacher, workshop facilitator, all-round amazing person, Ellie Newland, who is in Brighton, James Edward Marks, technologist, innovator from Play Labs, who's in the west of England, Iqbal Singh, outreach from the Outreach Department of the National Archives, who is based in Kew, Lorna Inman, who is in Greenwich, 0 degrees longitude, our VR technologist, specialist, and all-round brilliant artist. And we're also joined by Louise Green, project manager for Girmit, and Emma Dias, Nutkhut's general manager. Welcome to Girmit, and welcome to Girmit Talks. I'd like to first kick off with speaking to James about how he first got involved in this project. James.
Hi, AJ. Yeah, I met AJ at Ravensbourne University. He was exploring the new art form, sort of augmented reality, and we talked about if we could collaborate. And one of the things I wanted to bring to the project of Girmit, understanding the kind of passion and the complexities and the counter story that was involved in it, was how we could use some of the traditional techniques, so a graphic novel, but also bring in some of the latest technology like virtual reality, and then craft something where people would get to feel the experience and bring a team together from around the planet. So a kind of no boundaries, feel it kind of mantra that we brought to the project.
That's fantastic, Jem. And Ellie, tell us a little bit about your involvement. How did you get involved in the project?
This is the third hidden history project that I've done now with Nutkhut. So first of all, we did Dr. Blighty, which explored the role that Indian soldiers had to play in the First World War. Then we did Never Set Eyes on the Land, which was about the partition of India. And this is kind of the latest installment in that trilogy, really. And it is my role to go out, usually in person, to community groups and to schools, and to get them really interested in the stories that we're trying to tell. Thank you,
Ellie. Iqbal Singh from the National Archives. Tell us how you got involved in the project.
Thank you, Ajay. Yeah, I mean, my involvement has been not only with this project, but with previous projects that you've run. And I mean, this project in particular is something that we were very interested in working on. And I would be interested in just sharing a little bit more, but you might want to ask me that later. So.
Well, there's lots of questions to ask you, and your engagement has been brilliant. Thank you. We'll move on to Lorna. Lorna, tell us a little bit about how you got involved.
So I'm a virtual reality artist, and I was approached by Jem to become a part of the project. And that's how I began working with Nutkhut on the Girmit project as the virtual reality artist in creating all the visuals for the Girmit 360-degree immersive short film.
Great, thank you, Lorna. And Louise, tell us about what has it been like making a project happen through the pandemic?
So yeah, we've managed to keep the focus about the people that we're trying to keep these sort of the focus has been about the people and the hidden stories, and really bringing those to the forefront, and keeping that as the focus has been my main goal. And that's been quite challenging given that we haven't been able to sort of see each other. So it's sort of been trying to sort of keep it fresh in people's minds, and not get too sort of bogged down by COVID, and yeah, just keeping everyone positive and moving forward.
Great, thank you, Louise. I'm really conscious that you know things are changing in different parts of the world, and as a result of that, more of these projects of self-reflection and identity. People have had time in various lockdowns in our part of the world, in Europe, and in other parts of the world, you know, to think about doing research or writing something or reflecting on identity or where they've come from and all this kind of stuff. And I guess we've been part of that thinking whilst making this project as a group, but also perhaps as individuals. And we often don't get time, you know, to talk about that as members of this team. Iqbal, I wanted to come to you to talk to you a little bit about what role has the archives played or will continue to play? I mean, you know, is there? I mean, it's been an absolute foundation for us in this project. But where do you see some of that going, or how do we see that? How do you see us carrying that forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are certainly further avenues. I mean, as I say, it might be good if I just share with you the screen and take you through a little something that I've prepared. I mean, this work we're doing on Indian indentured labour is something that we're very committed to. We have some very rich records at the National Archives. And so before I kind of go on to what that is, let me just say a little bit about the National Archives and about my role. So the National Archives is based in London, in the United Kingdom. It's a collection spanning over 1,000 years. It is the British government's official archive. So we basically collect records from the British government and not from the general public, as it were. Access is free, and this also includes good online access. And this outreach service is what I'm part of. So I'm Iqbal Singh. I'm the Regional Community Partnerships Manager at the National Archives. And we have a website with lots of information, and that is a particular link to our page where you can see a lot more details of the projects that we run. And just really to say to people that, you know, as part of Girmit Day, I mean, this is about researching your own histories as well as researching histories of people that you might be interested in learning more about. And something like an official archive can be a really good first place to go to. And the National Archives has a research guide, which can really help people to start that journey. And again, details are here. We also have images which people can use to start to access some of the stories behind what was going on. Flickr, we have a very good album there, and also our image library. And then we have a collaboration with Find My Past, so that if people are actually interested in looking at some individual stories, and maybe even some family stories, they may be able to find something or some connections through the Find My Past collection, where we have this BT334, births, deaths, and marriages on board ship. And these sometimes unlock quite interesting story, you know, clues. And I mean, using individual names, I used the name Ganges, and immediately, you know, you start getting results. I'm conscious, you know, of the time. I wanted to really just, for Fiji in particular, just plug this particular Register of Correspondence, CO419. It's an extraordinary collection of correspondence registers from which you can then start to identify possibly documents that you would want to call up. And there are certainly people at National Archives who can help you to do that. And I think just finally, I mean, leave that slide there with the Q image there of the National Archives to really say that the story of indenture is both very difficult, it is at times very upsetting, but there are also extraordinary stories of resilience. And we also have the story of Fiji post sort of the end of indenture. and certainly still much more time for debate. So I hope that gives you an overview of what we've been doing. And in terms of how we think of our future, I mean, as I say, these collections are very, very rich. They cover many, many colonies that were part of the British Empire, and many of these colonies have links to indenture. So certainly, you know, this is just literally at the foothills of some work that we are starting, and it's great to have the opportunity to do that with Nutkhut and the wonderful team that we have here. And I'm hoping that, you know, in years to come, we'll be doing more and more and more. So hopefully, Ajay, that gives you a sense of what we're trying to do.
That's excellent, Iqbal. Thank you so much. I think, like you said, we're only just scratching the surface, and there's a lot more work to be done. I'd like to move on to Lorna. Lorna, tell us a little bit more about your process and the kind of narrative and narratives that you've built, because you know you've created something quite special. You know, I think we're all pretty much in awe of the work that you've been doing. But tell us a little bit more about why and how that process has developed.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, and second of all, so I've been working in this space for about 2 years now, and I came from a background in art and design. So my work developed from, first of all, creating 360-degree oil paintings, and I always was interested in immersing people in them as much as possible. I tried many different ways of doing this, and I finally stumbled across VR, and specifically Tilt Brush, which is the software I use to create these worlds. And so this allows me to literally paint in front of my eyes in 3D virtual space. And you start with a blank canvas, which is actually just a big space, a big abyss, and then I can build up huge environments from there. So this is where the film was born out of, and it actually began as just one environment in total, and then it expanded to 5, along with a lot more smaller assets that got put in by David at Scene Graph. So in the end, the creation was a huge project, and in terms of the storytelling, it grew so much because of the storytelling, because we realized that you couldn't just tell this story in a 3-minute video, and we're still now finding new ways to use what we've created, to continue telling the story in more depth, because there's just so much, and there was so much research that went into piecing the environments together. So everything has been copied, even from some photos that you showed in the National Archives slides there. I kind of put these into my environments to bring the story together that we were trying to tell.
Well, we're still in awe, Lorna. I mean, it's really excellent that you've described it as a kind of empty space that you built on, because I still can't get my head around it. I love it, and when I watch it, and maybe this is an opportunity for us to just show off our Google Cardboards, which we've all used, and for anyone who would like a headset, we had them specially designed, courtesy of a relationship that Jem had with a company in Berlin. And we really wanted to make this project accessible and democratic, you know, and technology can be expensive and untouchable, you know, for many people. And I think these Google Cardboards were an opportunity for us where, you know, people could place their phones, or we supply schools with phones, and then we can give these kits to schools, classrooms, young people to start thinking and imagining and viewing themselves without all of the cumbersome equipment that needs to that come with it. So thank you, Lorna. Thank you for that. Jem, I think that it seems right to move on to you. You seem to be in some kind of virtual sugarcane field. Tell us more.
Yeah, so like Lorna said, I mean, the work that she's done is kind of, I would call this a tilt brush epic. And it's a project I'd always wanted to do. I first tinkered with tilt brush in a live gallery in 2016, and it was kind of just coming out. When I saw it, it kind of blew my mind of what the potential for artists this could do. And like Lorna said, I think David Lynch famously said, when he was at art school, he started off creating moving pictures. And then somebody said to him, well, can't you make a film? You know, but he was doing mechanical pictures at the time. So for somebody like Lorna, who was doing fine oil painting, and then suddenly be able to go in and create this multi-dimensional kaleidoscopic experience out of feelings, like I said, it gives me goosebumps when I think about it. And then it kind of, we always knew that this project, when we went to the Girmit World site, would become something that we hoped would become a bigger project with the comic book, which is, you know, in the end could be a storyboard for a Netflix series. The going to Kew Gardens to capture the multi-dimensional feelings of the economics connected to the biodata of the plant, which we got a piece of the sugarcane, then feeling it through technology like Subpack, where your body is the medium. And so I think what we did is we mixed all of these different mediums, and some of the technologies, people go, yeah, Google Cardboard, but it's about accessibility. It's about opening a young or an old person's eyes and for a new experience. And I think, yeah, it was a project that I think is future-proof. I mean, we can't even touch on all the things we've done. You know, the virtual heirlooms, which are crafted by Lorna, the Mozilla Hangout space. And so we've still got a long way to understand the project ourselves, the augmented reality, playing around with the objects in your own physical space. So yeah, I think we're just getting to understand where the project will go from now.
I think you make a really valid point, Jem, that now that we've got all of the bits, we've started to gather all of the bits of the project, and we've got a live portal, www.girmit.world, GIRMIT.world. It should flash up on your screen now. Do go to that portal and have a little play around, have a little look around, because it's growing. And it's growing on us. It's growing organically itself, and I think that was always the plan, to bring together not to have a script that one person wrote that we all work towards, but to have a kind of blank canvas that lots of good people come to and all start to contribute to. And I think in a way that's what Girmit.world, the portal, has become. I for one am beginning to understand the sort of world or the project that we've created better. This all started, a couple of years ago, thinking, how do we tell this story to a wider group of people? Up until now, this type of story had been confined to academics and archivists, largely. Those were the two kind of areas where this story of indenture existed. But from my own perspective, as the great grandson of an indentured labourer, this story existed in our living room. It existed in our kitchen. It existed in, all of those spaces in between. But the time that time wasn't the right time to tell this story, because other things were going on, And I think now, as a result of the pandemic, people have more time, and I think listening has changed. So the timing of this is really interesting. So I just wanted to share that with you, Jem, because I think you make a really, really important point, which I think we all agree with, that we are learning more about the project now that we've allowed the project to be released. Let's go over to Ellie. Ellie, tell us a little bit more about the detail. Tell us a little bit more about the toolkit, the plug and play. I know you haven't had an opportunity to go into schools for obvious reasons, but I think that has always been our intention. But tell us how you've sort of got around that, and what next, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, so for me, it's a very different kind of a project completely. My role is always about people. It's always about connection. It's always about personal stories. So it's been a very different way of working this time around, for sure, with lots of challenges. I think there have actually been huge benefits that have come with this way of working as well, in terms of, mostly for me, I suppose, I'd never even heard of a 360-degree immersive VR world, or a digital heirloom, or anything like that. And to see that come to life and be such a powerful way of immersing a young person who's probably a bit more tech savvy than myself in that world has been so powerful, and so powerful that I've actually, kind of rejigged the entire learning toolkit so it hangs around that very premise, so that we are following Lali's story and we're entering that world with him, and we're also kind of centering the whole thing around the digital heirlooms and things like that. So it's been a new way of working for me. I've also engaged kind of digitally with teachers out in the field, and I've assembled a small kind of team of ambassadors who are passionate about the work that we're doing, and working with them quite closely in terms of developing the learning toolkit, the plug and play resource. So basically the digital learning offer that will be available for free and complete in summer this year. And really, we want to just continue having that conversation. We don't want to just talk to a few schools. We want to promote this resource far and wide on the internet, and just get that out, get young people having this conversation, because this is not just, this is our history. This is everyone's history, and it's messy and it's complicated, and sometimes it's horrible, but it's about people and it's human, and that's what we're about. We just want to get the word out there and make sure that these stories are preserved and they're told.
Brilliant, Ellie. And we can't wait to get these headsets into schools, and just seeing how young people and teachers respond, and families respond. I think that's the ambition. When that opportunity arrives, we're just going to go for it, I think, aren't we? That's the plan. And we're now joined by Tui in Suva in the Fiji Islands. Tui is our illustrator and graphic novel artist. Tui.
I feel really blessed, because it's not just it's a part of history that I've grown up with. I mean, we growing up, we had Girmit coins, we had so many things that we'd hear about the Girmits, but we didn't really know. I mean, growing up, you just thought, the indentured laborers were people that just came over and they worked, they liked the place, and they stayed. But that's not the case. Like actually going in and when you have to do research and learn about things, and then you learn about all the other parts of the story that were involved, that a lot of people didn't know what they were getting into. There were so many different things that were part of the story that we were unaware of. Is that aspect with the story. But what I love about it is it's very easy to draw comic books with superheroes and robots and secret agents and things like that. But then it's always awesome to get subjects that aren't considered sexy, and to be able to draw that, and to tell a story, to tell a narrative with sequential images, to just draw and tell not just a broad spectrum of history, but a focused event of a person and his experience going through all these different things in places that I'm familiar with, that I grew up in, but because of its setting, it was a totally different world. And I really enjoyed immersing myself in that. As an illustrator, that was beautiful. because I was drawing familiar places, familiar people, but in a way that that was so foreign to me, if that makes sense.
It does, Tui. And, you know, we've just had a special delivery, I think all the way from Fiji, by airmail. Oh, look,
Oh,
it's
wow,
the front.
okay.
It's the front cover. It's the front cover of the graphic novel. Tui, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And we're really looking forward to, you know, the finished piece. And we've just said to everyone that, you know, we want to democratize the distribution of educational resources so that the graphic novel that you're making becomes free to public as a PDF to everyone on Girmit.world, you know, on our portal, as well as having a traditional Girmit graphic novel book. But also, you know, we were saying earlier that we feel this is just the start of the story. What we've all created here, Lorna's work with Jem's involvement, and Tui with your graphic novel is the foundation story. And now it's an opportunity for us to go into other stories within the life of these characters, you know, other little episodes, other little moments, you know. I just wanted to open it up in the next few minutes. Tui, thank you, and you know, just please stay with us. And you know, I just wanted to open it up to all of us in the last few minutes that we have of where do we go from here? You know, I mean, look, we've created a project where I don't think any of us have been in the same room with each other in a year. Actually, Jem and Lorna and I have, you know, we've done some work over at Ravensbourne briefly, you know, sort of 6 months ago. But where do we go from here? You know, and I just want to open that up to anyone who's got any thoughts on that.
I shall chip in. I think what's important for me over the next 6 months, as we start to sort of come out of lockdown and be a bit more free with what we're doing, is it's just, for me, my focus is to just get this story out there and get it into some festivals and get people using these headsets, because I think that's been the most frustrating thing, and the most frustrating thing about this project is not being able to sort of reach into those communities that we're trying to get into. So it's really exciting that we are talking to festivals now, and we're really looking at focusing on getting these headsets into people's hands and into families that wouldn't be able to access this technology. With this small piece of cardboard, they're going to be able to connect with our story, with many other stories, and you know, use new technology. And that's just been that's great. That's quite exciting. So that's sort of my focus over the next few months.
Yeah,
Thank you, brilliant, Louise. I'm just you know, Tui, would you mind just giving us a swing of Suva in Fiji? I think you've got the prize for the best background so far. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, yeah, it's a lovely place, Fiji. It's nice and green and pretty, but like with everything, you don't even notice it after a while, I suppose. But I'm just really happy that I could work from here and stay here and work with you guys. It was awesome.
Yeah, and we're blessed as well. So thank you, Jem. Sorry, I interrupted you. You wanted to come in there.
I was just going to build on what Louise said, and then probably what Lorna will know is that the project we won't really get to see it. And also Ellie, is that when it's not until we see people experiencing it. And also BR is a totally different thing, especially if you give the gift of the cardboard to somebody and their experience it and their experience of sound and other elements we could bring in to as the project develops. It's a very personal experience, and also the moments of maybe a grandparent and a grandchild experiencing the same thing in this way. You know, so there's a lot more that the people that have been involved in the project haven't truly seen. They've seen everything that's gone into it, but it's only when other people experience it, that you truly know that the art is doing its job.
Yeah, very, very powerful, very, very, very powerful. And I think, you know, as we've got into this final third of the project, I've realised how much more important this next incumbent is. You know, as all of you have so clearly put, once it goes into the public domain. And this is probably a good time to introduce Lorna's work, the 360 immersive film.
The gifts of the Girmityas. So many endless nights at sea, so many dark days on the shore. What and who was it all for? Flung like stars in a blue eternity. Strangers became sisters, brothers. Nana Nani, Aji Aja. Fathers, mothers. Living together, but still worlds apart.
It's an excellent piece of work. We always enjoy watching it. Earlier this year, we launched the portal as part of MozFest. Mozilla, which is the extension of Firefox, the browser. It's an international festival, and this year the festival was a virtual festival. We really got heavily involved with that festival. You know, it was absolutely the right space to be. It was a space where people from all around the world got together. And there was a film actually we made about that event, which is also available on Girmit.world. But I just wanted to sort of share that with you because it was a really important way of sharing this counter narrative and this hidden history story that often goes missing and could continue to go missing were it not for a graphic novel 360. And the next thing that's coming in line is a book where we have kind of gone hell for leather and decided to put together an oral history book, which is the heartbeat of the project. You know, it's the voices of that first generation. From my family, from the extended family that I belong to, and the extended and wider Fijian global diaspora, specifically looking at oral histories of the relationship between Fiji and the United Kingdom. So we're really excited by that, and we're right in the middle of putting that together at the moment. Just before we finish off, I just wanted to open the floor up again for anyone who wants to sort of share thoughts. Lorna.
I just wanted to say that it's really interesting to hear Tui's perspective on what he's created and the story that he's told. And it was nice to hear what he had to say about it, about like telling the story of someone that doesn't normally get to be told, and how he's learnt so much. And I'm thinking, compared to how I've learnt so much, like I've learnt beyond what I was expecting to, really. So I'm hoping that, I guess, that the immersive 360-degree film can, if someone can learn something from that, then yeah, that's like my main goal and aim. Yeah.
Thank you, Lorna. Brilliant, great stuff. Iqbal.
It's not just a national archives, it is an international archives, and certainly, you know, people on this call or people listening in who are not in the United Kingdom but may be interested in looking at collaboration, looking at drawing other partnerships and ways of sharing material that we have with other archives, that would be great. I mean, the big thing that we're all trying to do in this work is to try and get more and more people aware of this important story. And hopefully, you know, with the archives opening, they're gradually opening now in this country, people can come and visit and look at some of the records. And there's also opportunities maybe to do some filming at the archives and take some of those records that we do have and share them wider afield, so that people can get a sense of what those records are. And digitization costs a huge amount of money. So sometimes you've got to do it on the cheap. And that's really just by taking some nice photos and sharing them, and obviously making sure that you've given some credit to the National Archives. But I think those are the kinds of things that could really make this, again, you know, grow and grow. So hope that helped.
Great, thank you very much, Iqbal. Ellie.
Yeah, so for me, I think it really does just keep coming back to the stories and the emotional engagement. And I'm particularly excited to see kind of more and more of those oral histories come together as we move through, and with the book and things like that. But for me, of course, a lot of this story has just hung on one young man's experience. Just because, you know, we happen to know that the most about him, and that was Lali, who made the trip from central India. You know, I don't know what it's 7,500 mile trip off the top of my head, all the way to Fiji, 3 grueling months at sea to work in horrific conditions on the sugarcane plantations, and just how powerful and how strong that story was. And as many people we can get that story, as many people we can engage within that story as possible would be great.
That's amazing, Ellie. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder as well, because I think it's the lived experience and these personal stories that have the most powerful connections, not just with us as a team, but anyone coming across this story for the first time. It's these universal stories of endurance and hope, you know, hope for a better tomorrow. On that note, I'd like to thank you all for taking part in this special one-off. It's great that you're able to join us, Tui. This really was about kind of paying tribute to getting your work across the line, and we can't wait to see it in, you know, kind of printed, tangible PDF, all those different formats. And thank you all for watching, and thank you all for participating. If you'd like to get in touch, please get in touch via our portal, www.girmit.world, and all of our emails are on that portal. Thank you. Bula Vinaka. Tui, can we have a big bula from Fiji?
Here on Dumbula Vinaka.
Thanks ever so much. Thank you all.